Ever catch yourself just like thinking about the really intimate stuff? Like the things that really make sex, you know, truly connect you with someone.
Absolutely.
We're going to dive straight into that today.
Okay.
Specifically oral sex.
Sounds good.
Um, and yeah, I mean, this has been a part of human experience, like forever, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating to think about, you know, how fundamental the mouth has been in expressing desire and giving pleasure for ages.
Totally. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack what our sources say about both giving and receiving oral sex.
All right.
Think of it like your personal guide to understanding cunnilingus, or, as our source puts it, eating pussy,
Uh-huh.
and fellatio, also
Mhm.
known as sucking cock.
Okay.
So our goal is to extract like the most valuable and maybe even like surprising insights from this material, and basically give you a shortcut to really understanding how these practices work and how they can be enhanced.
I like it.
Now, we get it. Talking
Right.
about sex this directly might feel, I don't know, a little different. You might have questions about the language we use, or just even, the act of discussing something this intimate so openly. But we want to assure you that we're approaching this with respect, and we are sticking closely to the information that our sources provide.
Definitely. And it's interesting to note that the very terms that we use, cunnilingus and fellatio, come from Latin.
Hmm.
That alone tells you something about how long these acts have been recognized and even categorized.
Right.
Plus, it's undeniable that oral stimulation is a very common part of foreplay these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
In modern relationships.
Okay, so let's just get into the specifics. So our sources use some very clear and direct terms, which, helps us avoid any confusion.
Right.
So when referring to male anatomy, we'll see penis or cock.
Okay.
For female anatomy, it's vulva or pussy, and occasionally vagina or cunt.
Oh.
Intercourse is described as coitus or simply fuck.
Okay.
And when we talk about, our main focus here, cunnilingus is eating pussy.
Right.
And fellatio is sucking cock or blowjob.
Mm.
The act of performing either of these is giving head.
Uh-huh.
And when we discuss the experience of climax, you'll see ejaculate, come, or shoot his load for men.
Yep.
And orgasm, come, or climax for both.
Got it.
And finally, pubic hair is referred to as a woman's muff or bush and a man's bush.
Okay.
So just important to be aware of that terminology as it appears in the source material we're looking at.
Right. Makes sense.
Right. And the source makes a point of kind of distinguishing between, just like a little bit of oral touching as part of getting things started, foreplay,
Yeah.
and then like really committing to, quote, giving head
Mm-hmm.
with the primary intention of bringing your partner to orgasm.
Yeah.
Mainly using your mouth and tongue.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's about like
Yeah.
the focus and the intention behind it, right?
Exactly.
A quick kiss is different from like a long, deep, passionate embrace.
Exactly.
And I think it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
A little oral exploration and foreplay, that's one thing, but then dedicated oral sex intended to lead to climax is a whole other thing.
It's a whole other level. So this is where I think it gets interesting.
Okay.
Our source emphasizes that giving head, just like other forms of intimacy, has a really significant, like, emotional and psychological component.
Yeah, and I think that's often overlooked. It's not just a purely physical act, is it?
Not at all. And even just the way we initiate oral sex can be quite telling.
Okay, how so?
Well, the source uses the word persuading sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it suggests that getting a partner to receive oral sex, like to trust you and allow you to bring them pleasure in that way, might often be easier than convincing them to give it to you.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a power dynamic there,
Yeah.
and maybe even some societal expectations. Maybe a woman might find it relatively straightforward to entice a willing male partner into cunnilingus.
Yeah.
But if a man desires fellatio from a woman who isn't immediately in a sexual frame of mind, he might need to be more attentive to her arousal and comfort levels first. So it's like there's a difference in the initial momentum, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. So it might take a little gentle encouragement depending on the situation and who's initiating. But the source also points towards a pretty common outcome.
Okay.
It's like often if one partner gives head, the other is likely to reciprocate.
Yeah.
Or the encounter might naturally progress to intercourse.
Right.
It sounds like intimacy often has that give and take element. Yeah.
Exactly. The source even kind of suggests that for a really satisfying experience, particularly with cunnilingus, A man might consider initiating by giving oral sex first.
Okay.
This can help maintain focus and ensure the woman reaches orgasm, as men may experience a quicker drop in arousal after their own climax,
Oh, interesting.
potentially making subsequent cunnilingus, less effective if
Yeah.
they haven't already prioritized their partner's pleasure.
Right.
The 69 position is also mentioned as a way to ensure mutual pleasure from the outset.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's dive into the specifics of cunnilingus, or as our source so playfully puts it, how to eat pussy.
Okay.
And it kicks off by sharing some interesting data on how widespread this is.
Yeah, for sure. The source indicates that over half of men have engaged in cunnilingus,
Wow.
and a significant majority of both men and women report enjoying it. However, it also brings up this interesting idea of a love-hate dynamic some men supposedly have with female genitalia.
Hmm.
They might be very keen on intercourse, but less enthusiastic about oral sex.
Why do you think that perception exists?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's almost like there's this notion that some men approach female genitals with a mix of desire and maybe unease.
Hmm.
The source implies that women are often aware of this potential hesitation, which could understandably make them feel self-conscious
Yeah.
or less inclined to fully relax and enjoy the experience.
Right, totally.
And this leads us to the source's advice for women who want to encourage their partners. It suggests setting the mood, maybe initiating physical intimacy, guiding his attention to her clitoris, allowing him to touch it,
Uh-huh.
and even hinting at the possibility of intercourse or fellatio afterward.
Wow.
The source even mentions a kind of bold suggestion
Okay.
of a woman straddling her partner's face as a way to directly engage his senses.
Okay. Interesting. So for the guys who are, ready to explore, the source provides kind of a helpful overview of female anatomy.
Yeah, Anatomy 101.
Exactly.
So it starts with the muff, the pubic hair, describing its texture and how it covers the mons pubis and extends down the sides.
Right.
Next, it moves to the outer lips, or labia majora, noting their texture and sensitivity. Beneath these are the inner lips, or labia minora, which the source points out are typically thinner and more sensitive, and they come together to form the clitoral hood at the top.
Okay.
Then we have the vestibule, the area between the clitoris and the opening of the vagina. The source rather intriguingly calls this a playground, as it contains the openings of both the urethra and the vagina.
Interesting.
But the source is very clear. The clitoris, that is the central point of pleasure.
Yes.
It's emphatically referred to as the woman's sex organ.
Yeah.
The source underscores its location at the meeting point of the inner lips and stresses that while other types of stimulation can be enjoyable,
Right.
direct or indirect clitoral stimulation is usually essential for orgasm.
Mm.
It even cautions against this kind of common misconception that simply licking inside the vagina will be sufficient.
Right. So it makes like a critical distinction about how to stimulate the clitoris itself.
Yeah.
Because some women enjoy like very intense direct pressure.
Yeah.
And for others, that can be way too much,
Yeah.
even painful.
Right.
And the key advice here is to start gently. And if direct touch feels overwhelming, to focus on the surrounding labia,
Yeah.
But the underlying principle is consistent attention to the clitoris to kind of facilitate orgasm.
Yeah, exactly. The source then delves into comfortable positions for cunnilingus, emphasizing that extended pleasure requires both partners to be relaxed.
Okay.
So it recommends lying down, sitting, or reclining in ways that allow the woman to comfortably spread her legs and even use her hands to guide her partner.
Mm.
Specific examples include reclining on pillows or positioning the hips at the edge of the bed with feet supported on chairs.
And of course, it wouldn't be a discussion of oral sex without mentioning the 69 position.
Of course.
The source highlights the obvious advantage of simultaneous pleasure
Right?
and also the fact that it frees up both partners' hands.
Yeah.
However, it also points out potential downsides, like,
Mm.
it being distracting or things getting a bit messy.
Right.
So your pros and cons. And it briefly touches on other, more acrobatic positions.
Sure.
But the focus is really on practical and comfortable options.
Right.
So when it comes to the techniques themselves, the tongue is the primary tool.
Hmm.
And the source, reassuringly, states that most forms of licking and sucking will generally feel good.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I know. But it does offer some specific techniques. Lapping motions, like from the vaginal area upwards towards the clitoris,
Okay.
running the tongue along the inner and outer lips,
Uh-huh.
a more intense, quote, tongue fucking of the vaginal opening.
Okay.
and using the tip of the tongue to gently flick the clitoris.
Yeah.
It does advise starting gently
Right.
and suggests that more intense techniques might be better suited for when the partner is already highly aroused.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And fingers can be a really valuable addition here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The source draws a parallel to how many women masturbate,
Mm.
using pressure and rubbing on the clitoris.
Mm-hmm.
And it emphasizes the importance of lubrication and trimmed nails.
Right.
Hygiene is key. Specific techniques mentioned include gently spreading the labia to allow for better access to the clitoris,
Okay.
using a finger to flick the side of the clitoris. Inserting one or more fingers into the vagina, the number is a matter of personal preference.
Right.
And what they call the waving hello motion, which involves using a finger to stimulate the lower front wall of the vagina, often in combination with sucking the clitoris.
Okay.
The source also mentions using the thumb on the clitoris while the other fingers are inside the vagina, and what they call the palm over mons technique, with a finger or two inserted.
Okay, so a lot of options.
Lots of options, yeah.
A lot of possibilities. So the overarching principle for effective cunnilingus, according to the source, is variety.
Yeah, keep things interesting.
Right. Start slowly. Pay close attention to your lover's reactions and any guidance they offer, and gradually increase attention to the clitoris as their excitement builds. The idea of teasing by approaching and then momentarily withdrawing from the clitoris is also discussed.
Okay.
In positions like 69, the source even mentions the potential for using the nose and chin for added stimulation.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And a crucial piece of advice: avoid moving away from the clitoris just as orgasm seems imminent.
Right.
Unless that's part of intentional teasing.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. The source also briefly covers what to do when a woman is close to orgasm during and afterward.
Okay.
And it tackles that frustrating scenario. When someone is highly aroused, enjoying the sensation, but they just can't quite reach climax.
Right.
It explores potential underlying causes like self-consciousness or negative self-image.
Yeah.
And suggests solutions like minimizing distractions, continuing prolonged oral stimulation,
Yeah.
engaging in mutual masturbation, and addressing any body image concerns.
Okay. That's really thoughtful.
Yeah, it was a very thorough source.
It sounds like it.
And finally, on the topic of menstruation, the source addresses performing oral sex during a period.
Oh, okay.
It acknowledges that comfort levels vary greatly from person to person.
Sure.
And suggests practical solutions like using tampons and placing towels down for those who are open to it.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, let's switch gears now
Okay.
and explore the art of fellatio, or how to suck cock,
Oh,
as our source titles this section.
all right.
And again, it begins with some interesting statistics.
Yeah. So the source notes that a significant percentage of women have performed fellatio, and encouragingly, a good portion of those report finding it pleasurable.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, and it delves into some of the reasons why women enjoy it,
Okay.
including the desire to please a partner they care about, the sensual role of the mouth and tongue in sexual interaction, and even a somewhat subconscious desire to kind of feel a sense of intimacy by taking the man in.
Interesting. It also addresses some kind of common hesitations that women might have about fellatio,
Yeah, like what kinds of things?
like concerns about the cleanliness of the penis, the possibility of urination, issues of respect or feeling used, and the potential for ejaculation in the mouth.
Right.
Big one.
Yeah.
But the source offers counter-arguments and reassurances for each of these concerns.
Good.
So that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important to address those.
Definitely. So the source emphasizes that skillful fellatio goes beyond just, basic up and down movements.
Right. It requires a bit of finesse, doesn't it?
It does. It requires technique and an understanding of male anatomy.
Yeah. So what's the anatomy lesson here?
Okay, so the anatomical overview for women includes the shaft, which is described as relatively less sensitive.
Okay.
The glans penis, or the head. The corona, that's the ridge where the head meets the shaft, which is highlighted as very sensitive.
Okay.
And the frenulum, that's the underside of the corona, and that's considered like the most sensitive spot.
Okay.
And then, of course, the meatus, that's the opening at the tip. And
Right.
also, the scrotum and testicles, often overlooked.
Right.
But surprisingly sensitive erogenous zones.
Yeah, they are often forgotten, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. So when it comes to getting into position, the source discusses various options, but kind of favors kneeling between the partner's legs as it allows for good eye contact and the use of hands for added stimulation. Lying down with his hips at the edge of the bed is also suggested as a comfortable position for, like, more leisurely fellatio.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, 69 makes another appearance here as a way to, combine pleasures.
Makes sense.
So a significant portion of this section addresses what to do as semen.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big one.
It is a big one. And the source encourages developing a more positive attitude towards it,
Okay.
framing it as a natural part of his climax and emphasizing the importance of keeping the penis in the mouth until he's finished ejaculating.
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledges that taste can vary and touches on the psychological aspect.
Right.
For those who don't immediately want to swallow, it suggests alternatives, like him ejaculating into a hand
Okay.
or engaging in a deep French kiss immediately afterward.
Yeah.
And it even presents swallowing as a potentially intimate act
Okay.
and discusses gradual steps towards becoming comfortable with it.
So really meeting people where they're at in
Exactly.
terms of comfort level.
Exactly. So for women who want to find more enjoyment in giving head, the source stresses the importance of the woman being aroused herself,
Yeah.
focusing on the goal of bringing her partner to orgasm and the anticipation of receiving oral sex in return. It's about mutual pleasure and desire.
Okay. Absolutely. So then it moves on to basic techniques for fellatio,
Okay.
starting with kneeling, gently holding the testicles and penis, using wet lips and teasing with breath and the tip of the tongue.
Okay.
Slow, deliberate licks up the shaft, gentle nibbling, lingering attention on the head, varying the pressure of your hand,
Mhm.
and the basic up and down motion with varying levels of suction are all described.
Okay.
The source also highlights the importance of combining mouth and hand movements and paying extra attention to the corona during his climax.
Okay.
And changing techniques periodically is also recommended to maintain stimulation.
Right. So don't be afraid to switch things up. And now we get to the topic of, can you take it all in? Deep-throating.
Okay, everyone's favorite.
Of course. So the source provides some interesting facts about, the average length of the mouth and throat compared to the average penis length.
Yeah.
It clarifies that it's possible to give the sensation of deep-throating without actually using the throat by focusing primarily on taking the head deeply into the mouth.
Interesting.
For those interested in learning to deep-throat, the source recommends practicing with a dildo
Okay.
of appropriate size and texture,
Makes sense.
and it covers essential techniques like proper breathing,
Okay.
strategies for minimizing the gag reflex.
Yeah.
It even mentions sepicol lozenges,
Oh, wow. Specific.
tilting the head correctly, and gradually inserting the dildo.
So really breaking it down
Yeah.
step by step.
Exactly. So when it comes to the real experience, deep-throating a penis,
Right.
the source suggests practicing in positions like kneeling or with him sitting in bed.
Oh.
It mentions the natural curve of the penis as something to be aware of, as well as the importance of coordinating breathing with the action and establishing clear signals for when he can thrust.
Communication is key.
Yes. It stresses the need for gradual deepening
Okay.
and distinguishes between passively receiving the penis deeply, which is deep-throating,
Uh-huh.
versus a more active back-and-forth thrusting by the man, which is, well, thrift fucking.
Right.
And it highlights the crucial role of trust and open communication for that, and the potential risks of aggressive thrusting.
Yeah, for sure. Safety first.
Exactly. Various positions for throat fucking are discussed, along with considerations for each, such as standing or 69. The source also covers how to control depth and speed, coordinate movements for mutual comfort and pleasure, maintain proper breathing, and combine throat fucking with hand stimulation. It even addresses what to do if he ejaculates in your throat.
Yeah.
And also the psychological aspects of deep throating, including feelings of intimacy and vulnerability, are touched upon.
That's an important point.
It is, yeah. So the source also dedicates some attention to the, quote, balls, nuts, family jewels,
Okay.
suggesting gentle licking, caressing, and surprisingly, even the potential for gently but firmly pulling on them, as well as taking them into the mouth.
Interesting. A little something extra.
Exactly.
So finally, in the fellatio section, the source addresses the in a hurry scenario, offering a quickie technique that focuses on gently twirling wet lips around the corona.
Okay.
This is also mentioned as an effective way to quickly re-arouse him.
All right, so our final main section is about putting it all together.
Okay.
How to effectively blend oral sex and intercourse for maximum pleasure.
Makes sense.
And the source begins by considering the male refractory period and how that might influence timing.
Right.
It provides kind of an example of a potential sequence, starting with cuddling and kissing, moving into cunnilingus until the woman orgasms, transitioning to intercourse while continuing clitoral stimulation, engaging in rhythmic French kissing, varying the pace and depth of intercourse, and then perhaps returning to clitoral focus after male ejaculation.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of continuing clitoral stimulation even if the man reaches orgasm first.
Yeah.
It also highlights the benefits of simultaneously stimulating multiple erogenous zones
Sure.
and even suggests postcoital cuddling, followed by transitioning into the 69 position for continued oral sex.
Nice.
So the overarching themes throughout this section are the importance of open communication,
Yeah.
a willingness to experiment, and a focus on enjoying each other's entire bodies.
Yeah, I love that. So, to bring it all together, oral sex, both giving and receiving, is presented in our source as really a rich and pleasurable dimension of intimacy for many.
Mhm.
While specific techniques are important, it's clear that communication, emotional connection, and a willingness to explore each other's desires are equally vital.
Absolutely. And there were definitely some surprising nuggets in the material that we explored.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Maybe just the level of anatomical detail that was provided.
Yeah.
The emphasis on the psychological factors at play for both partners,
Mm-hmm.
or the step-by-step progression from, basic techniques to more advanced practices like deep throating.
Right. It's a journey.
It is a journey. So we really hope this deep dive has provided you with a valuable foundation for understanding and further exploring these intimate practices.
Yeah.
By offering some insights into technique, highlighting some important considerations around communication and comfort, it could potentially contribute to more fulfilling sexual experiences.
Absolutely. And here's something to really think about. Consider the balance of giving and receiving in your own intimate relationships.
Hmm.
Beyond just the techniques we've discussed, how might having more open and honest conversations about your individual desires and preferences deepen the pleasure and connection for both you and your partner?
That's a great point. It really gets at the heart of it, doesn't it?
It does, because ultimately, intimacy thrives on mutual understanding, respect, and a shared journey of exploration.
So well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.